All right, I think we're live, right?
We're live.
All right. Well, all the foodies, the boozies, the dessertsies, any of those. Welcome to the BDSM podcast, Booze, Desserts, Smoking Meats. I am Professor Porkloin here, and I've got my co-host with
The
us.
Meat Viking.
So we are going to continue our journey through the United States, and we are going to talk about Alaska today. And so hopefully we got some good things for you to learn, some things to try, think about. But yeah, man, we're going to Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you haven't been to Alaska before, have you?
No. Too cold. Much
Well,
snow.
depends on when you go.
Much snow.
Go in the summer, it's not that bad from what I've heard.
It's true. I have heard that too. I did almost take a job in Alaska, but I did not.
Well, I've never been to Alaska, but I know people who have, and they say it's great for fishing, great for hiking, great outdoors stuff. You really can't do anything but fly up there or take a boat.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that the time one of my friends went, it was around that time where they basically have sun for the whole week
Yep.
because it's so high up. And I don't know how I would deal with that. I like a little bit of darkness, but apparently it's got the flip side where it's dark for like 3 months.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There was that
So
that one horror movie that took place in Alaska. It was like 30 Days of Night, I remember.
yeah,
I was like, ugh, no thank you. Like, how do you even get out of bed? You just sleep, sleep,
I
sleep.
don't know, but more power to the people that are living up there.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully, again, you can learn some stuff. But before we start, I guess we need to find a safe word for today.
Ice.
Ice.
Ice. Or frostbite.
Frostbite probably sounds a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Frostbite.
It's not really kinky, depending on where you get it, but we'll throw that in there.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is, what's in the cup for this morning or for today?
It's pretty early, and so I am drinking coffee with screwball peanut butter whiskey.
Oh, you threw some whiskey in there. All right. Getting a little upper and a downer then, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Get the sleepies and the drunkies.
Well, get the sleep goes.
Well, I'm mixing it up a little bit. I had some Arnold Palmer. So
Ooh.
for anybody that knows what an Arnold Palmer is, it's basically just tea and lemonade. You mix that together. But if you wanted to make it real fun, you throw some vodka in it and you make it a John Daly. So for other people that don't know, John Daly is the golfer who is basically known for his antics on the golf course by smoking cigars and being a fat slob and drinking a bunch of booze. So they took the Arnold Palmer and kind of named it after him. So cheers. That's what I got in my cup today.
Mm. That actually sounds super good. Might have to go get some iced tea and lemonade today and make me some of them.
Yeah, downside is that they go down really smooth. So just be careful if you decide to go ahead and make that.
Oh yeah. That's
But
like a yard working drink.
yes, I will be doing some of that later. So I kind of have to feel like I can ease into it. Ugh, might have to sneeze. Yep, there we go.
Frostbite.
Um, so let's start our journey, man. What's one of the first things you want to chat about?
Hmm. You know what? We kind of talked about this briefly, but if there's like 30 days a night and like a week of summer, y'all probably gonna drink a little bit during that time. So I think we should probably start with our drinks first.
The drinks first. All right.
Yeah. And do, do. Looks like we have a huge contender here for the best brewer in Alaska, being known as the Anchorage Brewing Company.
I have had some of their beers before.
Do you have any you remember any of the names?
No, I'd have to look back on my Untapped app and see what I've got from them, but I've definitely had a few of them.
So the number one is a blend of a 1 year and a 3 year aged imperial stout in wow, I cannot talk today. In bourbon barrels that has hints of vanilla beans and coconut. And that is known as their Anchorage Blast.
Don't believe I've had that one.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we go to another Anchorage Brewing Company, number two on the list, the Tired But Wired, is an imperial stout fermented and aged Missouri oak barrels, and it's finished on coconut and coffee. So they have like this really fondness on their top two for coconut, which I can get behind. Going down here to number five is a beer called Anchorage Ghost. And it is a white beer fermented and aged in Missouri oak barrels again, brewed and dry hopped with lotus hops and can conditioned. So I'm not sure what can conditioned is. Do you have
Basically, yeah, conditioning it in the can means you put it in there and then it will carbonate within that. So you can do bottle conditioning or keg conditioning. Essentially, you just let it sit in whatever container you're putting it in. But my question, because I do some brewing stuff, I'm kind of curious to know where they get all their grains from. Because you think Alaska, I mean, for the most part, the majority of the time it's cold, right? There might be some permafrost. The ground might not be suitable for grains, right?
right?
So I wonder if they import some of their grains and then do the brewing, because obviously, hops, some of those are grown just like grapes. And, I did a little bit of some research with some of the wines that are up there, and they have the fruit. They can definitely do the fruit, but they've also been a part of like a consortium where they get grapes from other parts of the country and then they make their wine that way. So I wonder if brewing is going to be the same way. I wonder if they get their grains from, let's say California or Washington or somewhere else. And then obviously it's milled, and mashed up, and then they can brew everything that way. Because I just don't see Alaska being the place where you can grow grains,
Mm-hmm.
Or if they are growing it, it's such a small percentage because of the weather. They get the sunlight for that, and then it's dark for how many months, and how many months do they really have where it's warm enough, right?
Right.
So I'm wondering how that works out.
It looks like, from what I'm seeing here, it requires some definite ingenuity and some will with a green thumb. Basically, taken from an Anchorage Daily News segment here, is they ended up taking them out of the greenhouse that they had their hops in because they were too difficult to manage. The next year, he put up a 12-foot pole out alongside the facing fence and planted robust hop plant at the base. Had the pole anchored with ropes so it was pretty secure, and ended up growing this humongous hop. But sadly, due to the winter that got back up, that pole ended up getting knocked down, and because of the harsh environment, they just decided not to try and grow it again.
Yeah, so that's hops. I mean, yeah, you can do hops, I guess, in a greenhouse, but again, the grains is really where I'm kind of focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like to get two row or to get any of the other malts to make things like that stout. I'm kind of curious to know how they get it, but either way, apparently they got some good beers, so it's not like
Yeah.
I'm going to deny whatever process they're doing.
Right. And like, oh geez, trying to think, because I do know people who worked in Alaska, because part of the reason I didn't end up taking that job is because it was a bad, like, there are certain seasons in Alaska where you don't want to go and do the work that I was going to be doing. And this was one of them. And I had none of the equipment needed to be successful out there and basically not be on the first plane back.
Well, at least someone freaking told you ahead of time, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, it was a tight knit group of people for sure. But I can't remember if it was either in Alaska or Hawaii. But in our last episode, we talked about that $5 footlong sub, right? And they said it was like $14 in Alaska, I believe, because of having to import everything in there. So I can only imagine if they have to import all of that stuff, importing your grains is going to also raise your beer cost up very high.
Oh yeah, I can't remember where I was looking at, but someone was talking about the supermarkets up there. And if you take whatever you get here, just basically triple it up there because they, again, they have to import everything. And the only way you can do it is either by plane or by boat.
Yep.
So that would probably also be a big problem. I would probably hate that because I'd be like, man, freaking toilet paper is $5 a roll. Like, screw that.
Yeah.
I'll wipe my ass with the three seashells.
Right.
If anybody remembers that movie, good for you.
God, it's been a minute.
Yeah, it's early 90s, or not early, probably mid to late 90s. It's got Sylvester Stallone in it. There's your hint.
Yeah. I know I heard that joke somewhere else too. It's like one of those ones where like the dad or like the mom lives in like New York City and like the kid is from like third world country almost. I
I
forget
don't
the
know
name
that
of it.
one,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah. So I think the alcohol up there is probably, you know, interesting to say the least, because I feel like you can do other things with it. I know with some of the stuff I was talking about with the wine, a very popular thing that they do up there is ice wine.
Ooh.
Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of ice wine before, but it's a little bit more potent than your normal wine. Typically, table wines like around, 11 to 14%, and stuff you get in your bottles. Ice wine is probably closer to that 16 to 20, maybe a little bit more depending. And essentially what they do is after it's fermenting and after it's there, they'll freeze it and then they'll scoop out all of the ice that comes out on the top. And then what you're left with is a little bit more concentrated of the fermented stuff that you did. So you're scraping out all the water essentially. And then they'll freeze it again. And then they'll try to get as much of that water out. And then there you go. Now it's usually very sweet. So it's kind of a dessert wine, something you do after dinner. But those things are potent as hell, man. You drink some of that stuff, you can be feeling real good real quick.
Mm.
So, but I see a lot of Alaskan stuff and perfect climate for it. But yeah, because alcohol has a lower freezing temperature.
Right.
So, and then there's actually ice beer. That's the same premise. And then you can also do the same thing with Applejack. Like if you have apple cider, same thing. You're basically just getting rid of the water. So
That sounds like a hearty alcohol, but very good.
yeah. But one of the other things that I looked up, and apparently this is the most important coffee place. It's the Kaladi Brothers. And they've only been around since the early 80s, but they apparently have made a pretty good staple in Alaskan, like the coffee scene. So they are a premier coffee shop that do roasting of all the beans. And it seemed like they started out pretty simple. They went up through Seattle and they saw different coffee carts and they were like, hey, we could do this up in Alaska. So they basically rented out a coffee stand, one of those ones that you push, and they wind up getting their beans from a guy who was just doing it on the side, and he would roast them for them, and then they essentially just grew their business from there. So have you ever heard of the Kaladi brothers? I'm sure they
No,
probably sell nationwide now.
I haven't heard of them.
So you might want to take a look at that.
Yeah.
They're serving, again, Alaskan. They're in Anchorage, and I'm sure a little bit more, but their home is in Anchorage. So take a look the next time you go into the grocery store. You might not see it, but maybe you can order it online.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I have to try that because I do love me some coffee. Now, how do you spell the Kaladi brothers?
Kaladi.
Okay.
And I hope I said that name right. I mean, I probably could have butchered a little bit, but I think it was pretty similar to what it is. Some of the other words I'm probably going to butcher later on, but that's part of the thing.
Yeah. So now that we've done and had our little flight of appetizing beers, you want to lead us in with maybe a main course?
Maybe not necessarily a main course, but I guess it could be, but it's also part of a regular course. And I thought this was really cool, was reindeer sausage. So everybody thinks of reindeer around Christmas time, right?
Yep.
So you always think about those animated ones that fly Santa's sleigh. And, if you grew up in Alaska, reindeer is basically what came with your eggs for breakfast.
Nice.
So reindeer sausage has been a long time Alaskan staple, and you either get it as a side, typically at diners, or you can find them in hot dog carts. But a little bit of some history on there. 19th century, there was a lot of reindeers that were brought to Alaska from Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an attempt in order to create this new food industry for the native Alaskans that are up there, because typically, which I think you'll talk about in a little bit, they relied more on the whaling up until that point.
Yep.
So it never really became a main source of meat for them. But the sausage for the reindeer, it actually found its way into a lot of Alaskans' main dishes. So yeah, the whaling and all that stuff is still the big thing, but the reindeer kind of was like a supplement for maybe those times when they couldn't get any of the whales, and they had a lot of those things abundant anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that to be really interesting, in that you can actually get it online too. They'll sell you little packs, and apparently there was one that's called Rudolph's Revenge. And apparently it's really spicy. So, I mean, maybe you want to give that a shot, and hopefully your butthole doesn't kill you later on.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
But yeah, I found that to be really interesting. I would think that herding them, feeding them, keeping them healthy would be similar to cows, right?
I mean,
I'm not the agricultural guy, so I can't really say whether or not that's going to be comparison.
I would assume it's more like keeping deer, like you would on like an exotic pet farm.
Oh yeah, that's right. A little bit closer to that.
Yeah.
But what also I found out too is that it's got a nice leaner meat.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to think about it being super fatty, super greasy, which, I mean, hell, that could be pretty cool. It could be healthier if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, some of the hamburger stuff is like 80-20, or if you really want to get super lean, you can get like the 97-3.
Yeah.
But compared to other things, I think reindeer would probably be pretty tasty and pretty good to have with eggs and maybe on a hot dog bun. So
right. I wonder how much that tastes like straight venison.
yeah, I'm wondering what the similarities with that is for deer, like your normal whitetail that people hunt, get the venison. So I wonder if reindeer has that same taste, maybe same gamey taste, or if it's because they, cook it differently.
Right.
Because I've had venison burgers before, and you could spice it all up, but you could still know that the leanness
Yeah.
So I wonder if it's the same way, maybe doing it with some like caramelized onions or throwing in some au jus and doing like a reindeer French dip or something
Yeah.
with some Swiss cheese. So it's got to be someone up there or someone doing it has got to have the spices to say, hey, this is how we're going to make it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Reindeer.
Yeah, you can have Santa's little helper.
Hey, don't tempt me with a good time. Oh no. So from reindeer, which I'll admit I actually didn't think, because I thought, that would be more like you said in like the Siberian area, but it makes sense that Alaska would have them as well because of the climate. But I think one of the things that people are going to think about when you think about food in Alaska is you're going to be thinking about salmon. And apparently, there is a specific kind of salmon known as the Cooper River salmon, which is highly sought after because it tends to be, on average, much more rich in your omega-3 nutrients, providing it with a healthier and like better taste. That's something that like the top 13 dishes to eat in Alaska, the Cooper salmon is up one of there just because of how sought after this is. Instead of like your regular Alaskan salmon, they want you specifically to try this salmon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And looking at it, I mean, just as far as recipes goes, it seems to be you prepare it just like any other salmon. You can saute or pan sear it, you can grill it, roast or boil. You can poach the salmon should you want. And by that I mean like simmer in water in a large pan, turn off your heat, add your fish skin side down, liquid cover the fish, cover the pan tightly, and return to a light simmer and cook for 4 to 6 minutes. Um, and you can pair this with dried red and white wines that have fruity notes such as like your Pinot Noir, your Cabernet, or pair with hoppy beers such as IPAs and Pilsners. And it also goes good with certain seasonings such as coriander, dill, thyme, rosemary, garlic, green onions, shallots, tender green herbs. And then if you want, you can do avocado, cucumber, citrus, miso, mustard, or ginger on that.
That sounds pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I found out about Alaska with some of their stuff, the salmon, is that they are the largest in North America when we're talking about the total amount of wild caught Pacific Northwest or Pacific salmon. They're doing about 80% of the salmon is caught up that way. And they're doing almost $1 billion in fish a year. Which is crazy to think about. I mean, and this is all the fisheries that are up that way because I guess salmon wasn't always the biggest thing up that way, but it wasn't until the 20s is when it really led to this overfishing. And then I guess in the 50s, Eisenhower wound up declaring Alaska basically a federal disaster site, and they needed to improve all of that. So good for him on noticing that one. But apparently the catch grew, and now it's basically what we have now. Most of the salmon that you're going to have is going to be caught up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those bad boys can get freaking huge, man. I'd like to do some of those sport fishing up that way. I had a friend that went a couple years back. This is probably maybe 2014-ish, somewhere around there, 2013. And he went up there and went fishing. Did some salmon, but did some steelhead. And there's a guy that he traded bear meat for salmon.
Oh
Because
yeah.
he was camping, doing a whole bunch of wildlife things. He was there for like a month. And he was like, man, the fishing is insane. But after a while, you just get kind of bored eating the same thing. And they were on the trail, and this guy says, hey, I got bear meat. Do you want some bear meat and trade for that salmon that you've got there? And he's like, well, hell yeah, man, I'll trade all that stuff.
Right.
I find it pretty cool that trade is still, I guess, good or still known up there, instead of saying, hey, like, here, give me $50 and I'll give you this. It's more of, here, I'll trade you berries and whatever wine for what you got.
So you mentioned that, and there's this show that the wife and I have been watching on Hulu called The Great North, and it's made by the same people who made Bob's Burgers, right?
Yeah, Bob's Burgers.
But essentially, they were trying to trade for an avocado for this guy's like fiance's like birthday present, and it was like them slowly trading up, like, hey, I have a motorcycle helmet, I'll trade you for like a car seat. And so it goes through like series of trades until they end up with their avocado. And it was kind of interesting to see that. So
Yeah, but I mean, I think other fun things that would be up that way is to do, fishing right there on whatever that goes into the Bering Sea or any of that other stuff, or even just hunting would probably be super cool.
mm-hmm.
But I think some of those grizzlies get up to freaking huge pounds.
Yeah, grizzlies get big, bro.
And what was it? Wasn't there some stories that were talking about people who had like a pistol? They had like a 9mm or something. They were hiking, and they encountered a grizzly bear, and some dude just popped off all of the shots that he had in it, and it didn't do anything to the grizzly bear, and he wound up dying.
Yeah, no, like when you hunt in Alaska and even certain parts of the US, they have like minimal, how do I say this? Like minimal caliber recommended for being on like that part of the land. And a lot of the times it ain't no 9mm. Like, especially if you're out in Alaska, you might want something closer to like a 357 Magnum and or a 50 caliber because of how immensely large those beasts are.
Yeah, it probably feel like a BB gun to them. Be like, what are you doing to me, man?
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but like, you get so big and so weather worn from being out in there for so long that you just built this natural toughness to your hide. And, like, I'd be surprised if that 9mm did little more than maybe break a couple of bones. And that bear's not going to give a shit about that. It wants its midnight snack.
Well, I think at that point you just pissed it off to where it's going to say, all right, I wasn't hungry, but now I am because you freaking poked me.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if you're going to go hunting up that way, make sure you bring something a little bit more stronger than just the 9mm.
Oh yeah. But so there is one more main course food that I think you had for us, right?
Yeah, it's also coming from the sea as well. And everybody knows, man, king crabs.
Yep.
Like the king crabs, part of the Bering Sea, part of the Gulf of Alaska. For anybody that's watched the show off the Discovery Channel,
Deadliest Catch.
Yeah, Deadliest Catch. It kind of gives you a great idea of how they go out about catching these bad boys, and these damn things can get huge as hell.
Yes.
They can reach about 11 inches when it comes to just their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they can their legs can go, God, up to like 6 feet.
Yeah.
Get one of them real long ones. And they're pretty damn good. I don't know. Have you, when was the last time you had king crab legs?
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute for me too.
Yeah.
But
there's some foods when you have a beard like this, you just avoid.
Why not, man? You can just throw that crab right into your gullet and then just save all the stuff for later. You can have seasoning and everything right in that mustache.
Right in that mustache. Nah. I want to say the last time that I had like crab legs, probably when I was in Maine, and that'd be going about at least a decade back.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because, like, part of where I live, you're not getting fresh crab. That makes any sense? And, like, once you've had fresh crab, you can't go back to, like, not fresh crab. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like lobster,
Yeah. Yeah.
like being up in Maine. I mean, lobster is caught fresh. You get all that stuff right there. You can have a lobster roll, it's good. But then you go out to like Nevada, if you want to go to Vegas, and you're like, damn well this isn't caught fresh. It's been sitting on a plane for a while.
Yeah.
So I think crab legs are probably the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
especially the king crabs, because again, they're huge and they pick those things up like crazy. Again, deadliest catch kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. But imagine having like thousands of pounds of crabs, and then you come into port, right? You dump it all off, and yeah, you're putting in the work. You get like 2 months worth of work, but you just made like $50,000.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're a pretty good staple when it comes to Alaskan food. So I'd totally recommend, if you're gonna do it, get some king crabs as well. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of food.
A lot of food. Good food. Tasty food.
Yes.
Some butter and some lemon on that, you'll go a long way.
There was one that you didn't really talk about yet. It was the whales.
Right. And from what I've seen, this tends to be more of an indigenous delicacy from the Inuit tribe up in Alaska. It is known as muktuk,
Yeah.
M-U-K-T-U-K. It's a traditional Inuit delicacy that consists of whale meat cut into cubes. It's not a dish for the faint of heart, as the people either really like it or they really, really hate it. Another Inuit delicacy is that of hakful, and that is fermented shark. And while muktuk is less bizarre than that, it's certainly one of the weirder foods that tends to be eaten around the world. Growing
Now,
up, what's up?
I was gonna say, so you're talking about how it's often made from the blubber of the whale,
Right.
but I also read that it could also be used from like a beluga or a narwhal.
Yes. It's actually the skin and blubber of either a bowhead, a narwhal, or beluga whale.
Okay, so you're still looking at that whale side.
Yeah. And one of the things before I get back down to that is that while this is known as possibly one of the most disgusting foods in the world,
Yeah.
others have gone on a 30-day muktuk diet and actually have lost huge weight and just like notice some improvements in their overall skin. Kind of like how, that carnivore diet, how some people have like autoimmune issues.
Yeah.
But they go onto a more carnivorous based diet can tend to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Help reduce some of the symptoms of that. It appears that the 30-day muktuk diet does that as well.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now,
So it's normally chewed raw, though, isn't it? Is that why it's disgusting? Is because it's basically raw?
well, the way that I'm seeing it served typically is that it can either be pickled or deep fried and served with soy sauce.
Okay.
It tends to have like a nutty, oily taste. And it kind of looks like this black cap of skin with layers of gray, white, or soft pink white blubber. Super elastic and it'll bounce back when you chew it. But the blubber in that piece will actually melt very easily when you chew it.
So I'm gonna be gnawing on it for a second. Like the blubber's gonna melt, but the rest of it, I'm just gonna be chewing for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. And
Gonna be
so
working that jaw, man. I'm gonna have that cut chiseled jaw from eating the blubber.
Yeah. And so it's kind of funny because in this article here, it states that muktuk can be extremely repulsive, but also a fascinating dish. But only if you can get past the taste.
Now I wonder if it's just like fish where they have mercury in it.
Well, it is a rich source of vitamin C, and vitamin D because of, I'm not sure where they're getting all the vitamin C, but they used to eat this to oh my gosh, help with scurvy.
No,
because it's so high in vitamin C content.
that's interesting. I didn't even know that.
Right. Some say it has a taste kind of like fried eggs. Others say more of a fresh coconut. Some say it kind of feels like you're tasting jerky, but more of a cow fed on a strict diet of sardines.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if someone said, "Hey, try it," I'd give it a try, but I don't think I'd order it and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna eat this."
Right. I'm in the same boat as you. I would give it a shot. But I don't foresee me enjoying it. Maybe the deep fried version, but I also tend not to like pickled foods or anything, and so I don't know if I would like the pickled version of the muktuk.
Yeah. I don't know if I would like that either. That does not sound appetizing to me at all.
Right. But like I said, I would try it.
Yeah, I mean, try anything once.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe you'll actually like it, and then you'll say, "Okay, I can eat this again." But you might throw up too. So
Yep. That's probably why they lost so much weight in that 30-day muktuk diet.
yeah, or maybe they were just pooping it all out, man, because it was bad for their stomach and they lost all that water weight.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you think about it. From as far as like an enzyme and like probiotic perspective, that a lot of these like indigenous tribes that have like these weird or strict diets have like super biomes inside of their bodies, and scientists actually will go and dig through their waste to help develop stronger and better medicine.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those fascinating things.
Well, there's another thing that's pretty close to it's a dessert, but it's from where it started to where it's at now, a little bit different. And it's actually called a guduk.
Guduk.
And it's spelled actually Akutaq. So I had to look that up because I was definitely going to screw that one up. But it's basically a version of ice cream.
Ooh.
It's known as Eskimo ice cream, but it's not creamy ice cream like the way that we would have ice cream. And I think we might have even talked about it before. If not, we'll talk about ice cream later. But it's basically a concoction made from reindeer fat, sea oil, freshly fallen snow or water, berries, and even ground fish. And basically that word, the aguduk, really means mix them all together.
Huh.
So it's a delicacy. And Alaska natives have been eating it because they took them out for long hunts because the way that it can survive, the way that it's good to keep.
Yep.
Because you're using the cold. And Man, I just don't know if I would want to try that as a thing. I mean, maybe try it, but imagine putting all that stuff together and being like, all right, we're going to eat this one scoop of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's some faith in grandma's cooking right there.
Well, speaking of, actually, that's what would happen is traditionally the women would make this ice cream and it would be the grandmother or the mother of whoever the hunter was, because they'd bring back all their catch and then they would prepare that and share it with everybody in the community during different ceremonies.
Oh wow.
So you would really have to have faith in grandma or ma, whoever it is, to say, all right, let's see if you can do this or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it kind of cool though, because they make it for special occasions like funerals, uh, any like celebrations like marriages and things like the boys' first hunt, like those type of milestone stuff. So it's kind of cool that these Eskimo tribes or these Alaskan natives are still doing a lot of traditional things like that. So it's not really a dessert, but hell, if that's the Eskimo ice cream, then by all means, give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find any other things besides like sweet wise, besides like a blueberry cobbler. But I mean, that's just a cobbler. I think we've kind of talked about pies before. So
The number one I saw, well, it was number 13 on the list of things to try, is a gooseberry pie, because apparently gooseberries thrive in Alaska's cool climate.
okay.
So, because we can get to blueberries later, because there's a whole state that absolutely goes apeshit over blueberries.
Yeah, we'll get to blueberries later.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of covers Alaska, man.
Yeah, I think we did a good job there.
Yeah, fine. I'm learning some things. Hopefully, other people are learning some things too about this. But we got anything else that we trying to get there or what?
No, just let us know down in the comment section if you would be willing to try muktuk.
Or the Eskimo ice cream.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess we can sign off for today. So
Yep.
I'm Professor Porkloin giving you the knowledge, and
And
my
I have
co-host.
been the Meat Viking, tingling your taste buds.
And stay tuned for our next episode around the country.
Exactly. Thank you all.